means for their massive fortune. More on the divorce of Bill and Melinda Gates. Many wondering what this means for their massive fortune, approaching $150 billion. Amy joins us now with more on what happens when ultra-rich couples split up. Good morning, Amy.
Good morning, George. Yes, Bill and Melinda Gates are joining a number of other wealthy couples splitting up after decades-long marriages. Theirs is reportedly an amicable one, but it will be costly. Bill and Melinda Gates, billionaire power couple, now calling it quits, a first step in what could be the most expensive divorce of all time. Bill, currently in the top 5 of the world's richest people, is worth an estimated $124 billion. The couple is saying the marriage is irretrievably broken, but the split is seemingly amicable. Melinda hiring New York divorce attorney Bob Cohen, who has previously represented Mike Bloomberg, Ivana Trump, and Uma Thurman. According to Realtor.com, those assets include over 229 acres of farmland and several multi-million-dollar properties, including an $8.7 million home in Florida and the Gates' largest home in Washington worth $131 million. With the fortune amassed from the tech giant's role as co-founder of Microsoft, the couple founded the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, spending a nearly $55 billion endowment across charitable sectors like global health, gender equality, and public policy. Over a marriage spanning 27 years, the couple share 3 adult kids and several joint and individual ventures, in 2019 telling our GMA audience the importance of balance.
I think one of our biggest struggles for us in our marriage was how do we allocate our time between us and our 3 kids and our busy lives. And what Bill said, I think said really beautifully, was he realized that it wasn't good for either of us to be the time cop, even though I had felt that way, but that it's having shared goals.
Their split could play runner-up to the most expensive divorce settlement in history.
Jeff in the corner, please.
In 2019, Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos and Mackenzie Scott dissolved their 25-year marriage. Mackenzie walking away with a 25% share of their joint Amazon stocks, with her share currently worth about $36 billion. Mackenzie donating more than $5 billion of her fortune in the past year. And after a drawn-out public battle in 2008, Paul McCartney and Heather Mills parted ways and settled for $48.6 million. Still no match for media titan Rupert Murdoch's, who's no stranger to divorces, split with his second wife, journalist Anna Torvey, in 1999 for $1.7 billion. Now, if Melinda Gates ends up evenly splitting the fortune with Bill Gates, that would mean she would receive around $65 billion and would put her second on that list. George?
Okay, Amy, thanks very much. Let's bring in Hollywood divorce attorney David Glass for more on this. David, Washington is a community property state, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Melinda Gates gets half of all this, right?
That's right. Community property means property acquired during the marriage. So when they got married, Bill Gates had already created Microsoft and was their largest shareholder. So not all of that money, not all of those shares will be community property. That's a very complicated and complex calculation that has to be done.
And when you look at the divorce petition, what does it say to you? I was struck by one line where she says she's not asking for any support.
That's right. It's pretty clear that they're both going to have more than enough money to survive on, and so she's not asking for any support. But the important thing about the petition is that it's a joint petition, which in Washington state gives you the fast track to getting your divorce. Once you've reached an agreement, you can get your divorce in 90 days.
So, but almost certainly this agreement's been locked up for quite some time, right?
Absolutely. They wouldn't have filed for the divorce. They wouldn't have filed in a joint fashion unless they already had a very complex agreement down on paper and inked.
And what about the impact on the Microsoft stock? I know that the Bezos divorce, they certainly were taking that into consideration as they announced their plans. They wanted to make sure it didn't tank, which would hurt both of them. Expect similar arrangements here?
I'm not so sure. At this point, his stock ownership is about 1% of the company, and he hasn't been involved in Microsoft. What I think is more important is their legacy in the public's eye. They have this foundation, the largest charitable foundation in the world, doing all sorts of wonderful work. I think they're going to be more concerned about how they look and how the work of their foundation looks to the public.
Well, it was so clear they put out a joint statement from the foundation.
Correct. And they've spent almost $2 billion on COVID in the last year. They don't want to be caught arguing over who gets the grand piano in a court battle.
You dealt with a lot of these cases. What are some of the surprising things that these ultra-rich couples face as they're going through divorce?
You know, with people who have ultra amounts of money, you can go one of two ways. Either both of the parties can say there's more than enough money and we can split everything easily. On the other hand, they can argue, they can get down to arguing about who gets to keep this house versus that house, who gets to keep the stock account, the same way a couple who's arguing over a 1981 VW Rabbit and a 401k and a house worth $500,000.
Well, it's not exactly the same. David Glass, thanks very much.